Chapter 8. The officer had never been satisfied with the release of the crew. He held a grudge against all of them, especially the boatswain. He had his men scour the city, eventually finding where the boatswain had his evening meal. One evening, one of his uniformed men was sitting at a table when the boatswain walked in. The uniform stood up, bumping into the boatswain. "Hey, watch where you go, idiot," the man shouted, so everyone could hear. Heads turned, voices began to whisper. "You bumped into me," the boatswain said quietly, suddenly realizing the man as one of the prison guards. "You call me a liar, idiot," said the cloaked guard. "No, but you bumped me." The boatswain spoke quietly, backing away from the knife, not wanting to make a fuss, although realizing the fuss was already forming. Tables began to empty. Martians began to exit the hatchery. Soon only the boatswain and the assassin remained. The boatswain turned his back to the counter, just as the officer with the chip on his shoulder walked in, smiling. His new helmet, pure white, now the feathers 4, blue, green, red and white. The shore officer and his assassin had him now. They both pulled their dreaded hand-held crossbows from their cloaks. From the kitchen they heard, "Hi, prison filth, what can I get you? A dart in the heart?" The prison guard who had bumped the boatswain clutched his chest. The dart had struck deep. The poison was rapid, and it spread in his lungs. He felt like a swarm of bees stinging him. He grabbed at a glass of water, but he slipped. The glass flew across the table, crashing to the awaiting dry floor. He gurgled something, then lurched across the floor, stumbling into chairs and tables. He began to foam at the mouth, his eyes bulging from their sockets. They began to bleed. He tried to scream, but only foam, black, stinking foam, came belching from his mouth. The guard writhed around on the tiles. Then he sat bolt upright, looking around for something he had forgotten. The foam began to change. At first it was soft, like black tar oozing from the mouth, cascading down his beard. The black ooze suddenly started to harden. It blocked his windpipe. And then his ears began to bleed black foam that hardened. He died, but not right away. The fancy officer had had his bow knocked from his hand by a flying chair. He quickly drew his dagger from his leather belt, grabbing for the boatswain, who ducked to the side. The man's two-bladed cutter hissed through the silent air, missing by a hair. The boatswain picked up a discarded chair. The infuriated officer came at him with a shriek, waving his knife high in the air. The boatswain hit him with the chair, but the officer was in full flight and kept coming. The cutter's blades flashed in the overhead lights. He charged at the boatswain. The officer's brand new helmet was askew, the feathers waving in the onslaught. As he reached for the boatswain, it toppled over his eyes. He dodged the blades again, climbing onto a table that toppled over, taking him down and careering him into the cloaked officer. His precious helmet fell to the floor, rolling around, gathering up the dirt. turning grey, the feathers being crushed in the melee. He struggled to shake off the cloak. It had tangled with the leg of a chair. As he did, his arm thrashed around, hitting the next table that fell onto him, hitting him in the head, then rolling away. The boatswain scrambled to his feet. The disgruntled officer lay still. He went to him. As he bent to see if he was alive, the cutter ripped into the boatswain, through his gippon on his shoulder. The uncloaked officer scrambled to his feet, blood dripping from his forehead. The boatswain stood still, crouching, waiting, trying to outmaneuver this killer. He took a pace towards him, the two blades held in his right hand. He swished it at the crouching boatswain, left then right, taunting the boatswain to make a move, but the boatswain backed away, his shoulder wound bleeding, soaking his gippon. On the counter were steel trays. Quickly he picked one up. The knife came repeatedly, and he parried with the tray. The cutter, catching the side of the tray, slicing a corner of it. The officer came at him, holding the cutter high in the air. The boatswain turned to the side. As the man went by, he whacked him at the side of his head with the now sharp side of the tray. The assassin officer turned, looking quizzically at the boatswain. He turned past the boatswain to walk to the door. His cutter dropped onto the tiled floor. The two blades sang as they skittered away under the upturned table. He took a pace forward, his face drained to a stark white, his eyes crossed, his mouth moving but no words. He took another step, turned around back to the boatswain, his hand grasping for him, then fell onto the broken table. The tray had cut deep into the side of his head. He sat amongst the debris. As he was dying, he saw the captain walk into the hatchery. He was naked. He crouched down, whispering to him, "I told you, what goes around, comes around. Calm as a bitch." It was just then that the pain started. He began to scream. Then the side of his head opened. Blood slowly crept out, followed by a black stream of matter with pink sliced brain. The officer sat amongst the broken chairs and tables. He lived for a while in complete agony. He wanted the end to come, but the captain wouldn't let it happen. Then the pain got worse. He felt his brain slipping from his head onto the cold, old, tiled floor. He thought he saw the captain walk out of the hatchery, fully clothed. He must have drowned. It was then the light dimmed and the fancy officer died. The boatswain sat down on a chair, blood running from his wound. The boy from the ship came around from the kitchen. "Sorry, boatswain, I only had one dart." He had the medical kit with him. The boatswain took off his top. The wound now open to the air. The boy dabbed the poulon cloth on it. The blood stopped almost immediately. The boy had been trained by the doctor's college. He cleaned and sewed the wound. Then take the poulon antiseptic pad.